And we continue learning Dirshu Mishnah Brura. We begin a new Siman Baruch Hashem. Siman Kof Ayin Tes, which the Machaber coins as the Dvarim is the Dvarim Kurim Hesach Hadas Seudah Sharlachsul Levarich. What is considered a Hesach Hadas that it's going to sever your meal? That you're going to have to go back and make a new bracha. And of course, this comes really on the heels of Siman Kof Ayin Ches, which we learned the qualifications of Hesach Hadas in a Seudah. But now as we're going to see that there's some items which automatically sever your meal, automatically say you're done, and therefore are going to require a new bracha. So says the Mechaber, Gomar Seudah Sayvinati Adam Mayim Achronim. You finish the Seudah and you wash your hands, Mayim Achronim, and Yachal Echol, you're not able to eat and drink once you wash Mayim Achronim, you're not able to eat and drink anymore until you bench. Similarly, if you say, come, let's bench, that's called Hesach Hadas. Then you're not allowed to drink unless you make a new brach. So if you wash your hands by Achronim, sounds like you can't do anything. If you said, let's bench, then you have to make a new bracha. Eating is like drink according to the Rosh. Even though you stopped eating, silka was shulchan. If you want to go back and eat, you don't have to go back and make a new bracha. Why not? Says the Mechaber. The reason being, until you wash your hands, till you wash your hands, you do not remove yourself entirely from eating. So says the Mishnah Berurah Sivkat and Aleph, Lechol. One should be careful. An important, not such a known halacha, that after Mayim Achronim one should be careful lechatchila. So you already see the Mishnah Berurah, as much as he's being stringent over here, is giving us a little bit of a room to be mekel b'time hanid. But of course, lechatchila one should not be masik b'dibra afilu ma'at, even a little bit. Why? To take him the netila bracha, a concept that we've seen that immediately from the netila you want the bracha. We've seen this by Mayim Rishonim. We saw this when you wash before the Seudah. That's the reason you cannot be mafsik between the washing and the hamaitzi is because right from the netila you need to have the bracha. So too, my Mayim Achronim says the Mishnah Berurah, should have waited a long time after you wash your hands. The kolshkin shouldn't do anything. Let's say you need to. There's a pressing matter. Let's say you did be mafsik. What should you do? Eat the other shadis kedliyos. Take him until Mayim Achronim bracha. Should wash your hands again. So before we even go to Sifat Beis over here, which is really going to get more into the dinam of Hesach Hadas, let's take a quick moment. Let's flip to the Dirshu, which the Dirshu deals with this halacha, which this is more of a Mayim Achronim dik halacha. Says the Dirshu, no, number one, that when we say Shabi Mafsik B'Diver, even different Torah, we're going to see Shabi Mafsik between washing your hands and benching. What's the reason? Explains of Chaim B'Chashaimer in Chalushay B'Asra that since the obligation of Berachas HaMazayin is when you finish the meal, and when you wash your hands, Mayim Achronim, that's called the end of the Seudah. So right then you have a chal the chiyuv of Berachas HaMazayin right away with the Mayim Achronim, and he adds on that the side of Mayim Achronim is why Melech Sidoimis. Therefore, the Chazal or Machayiv to make a bracha right away after you wash your hands. So you're not misiach das and touch anything else, touch more Melech Sidoimis and create the sakana, which is something that we'll learn by Achronim and we'll get to. But it says Rav Chaim B'Chashaimer, so it's the severance, it's the end of the meal, and therefore you want to bench right away. Continues the Dirshu over here, note number 3, Kideli is taken Latilas Mayim Achronim a bracha. Shartzin is going to explain that Ein Loimer Yitel Yadav Shenis. Why? Because you don't need anything else, and your hands are clean, and therefore you don't have to wash your hands again. And therefore, wash your hands again doesn't do anything, says the Shartzin. Explains of Chaim B'Chashaimer again. Shartzin is not discussing only regarding the lechatchila that you were not mafsik b'dibur. However, in our case, where you had to be mafsik, therefore you should wash your hands. So Scheinberg over here is making an incredible I don't know if it's a chiddush of the Shartzion. We have to get to that Shartzion. But he's explaining if one just by mistake spoke, then you don't have to wash your hands again. But if there's something that one had to do between the Mayim Achronim and benching, then he should, yes, wash his hands again. And finally, let's say someone went to the bathroom at the end of the meal. He said, Ashi Yatzar, between Mayim Achronim and Berachas HaMazon, says the Samos Chaim, Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, that since he read Ashi Yatzar, you should wash your hands again from Mayim Achronim, and then he should bench. This is not like the Mishnah Berurah over here, whereas Chaim Kanievsky says the original Tilas Yadai, the original Mayim Achronim will suffice. And now we move back to, we'll call it our Sugya, Sifkat and Beis, in which we're discussing the Hefsek. So we said, once you wash your hands, you should not do anything. So now the chilik that we saw when we read this Sif explains the Mishnah Berurah, washing your hands is not the same thing as saying Havlam v'nivrach. That when one says Havlam v'nivrach, he's still allowed to eat, just has to make a bracha. This is a different halacha. When you wash Mayim Achronim, there's an isser to be mafsik now between the Mayim Achronim and the benching. Says Mishnah Berurah, those who argue and say you're allowed to eat even though you washed your hands. Only after you eat, you should wash your hands again. Says Mishnah Berurah, not to eat between Mayim Achronim and bench. Let's say you're not eating or drinking, you want to talk. So everyone agrees you shouldn't be talking, shouldn't be schmoozing between Mayim Achronim and bench. Are you allowed to eat? We'll call b'makom hatzayrech. You wash your hands, you realize you need a drink. In that scenario, we're seeing over here, there is, we'll call it a makom to be makel, but of course the chatchila is not to. The second case in our sif was if someone said, Havlon v'nivrach, someone said, come, let us bench, pirush, ten lanu b'kais levarich. What does Havlon v'nivrach mean? Give me a cup to bench. If one is benching without a kais, come, let's bench. Or in his heart, he was mesiach das, he's no longer drinking, and you want to drink again, al hamashke, should make a bracha right away on the mashke. Let's say you're sitting and you're just drinking, then you say, let's say We'll see the Dirshu in a moment. We've already seen these halachas. This is very practical. So it's sitting here drinking. They're drinking and drinking. Say, I'm done. I'm going to make a bracha achronim. And they go and take another drink. So maybe in the practicalities, when someone says, I'm done, doesn't really mean he's done. Now, how far can we take that practicality? What if someone says, let's bench? It doesn't really mean let's bench. Let's bench just means, come on, let's have dessert. But let's say someone says, bring out the Mayim Achronim, and that's just a way to move along the meal. But of course, he didn't really finish the meal. That's something that we're going to have to discuss. If you finished in your das to eat, removing the table, you still allowed to eat. That's a rush. You ate some more, then you need to drink some more. One second. We turn over the Mishnah Berurah over here. Shulchan Aruch is not discussing betchilin in shtia. So we say, because why? Because you never finish eating. Misham the derech ligar machil ketan ligdoil. You want a little bit, then you want more. Ella kishenatal yadav. Only once you wash your hands. Says the Mishnah Berurah. Nivrach, Hashem Gemar Seudah. Vav Achila Aser B'loi Brach, you can't even eat. V'chein Sasman V'chaber, like when Simon Kuf Sadi Zayin Zivav Ayin Sham. Okay, Paskins the Mr. Bura. Lechatchila B'vadi Ishi Zayir Shaloi Lechel Acher Shamar Havulon V'nivrach. When someone says, "Come on, let's bench," don't eat anymore. Once your Mesiach Das, you're not watching your hands anymore, so now your hands might be dirty. You don't have to make inlay levarich. So let's go. Let's see as many dirshus as time will allow it. So first of all, dirshu number 4 says to then the kais levarich. What about pouring the cup? Says the Berhitim Shem the Marshal. Some say it's like saying Havlon v'nivrach, it's a hesach hadas, and whereas the Berchus Abayi says no, it's not considered hesach hadas. If you say Havay nitel yodenu, come, let's wash our hands, you say. Says the Ben Ish Chai, it's not called hesach hadas because you didn't say Havlon v'nivrach. Shir Hamalois al Naras Bavel, says the B'tzel Chachma, it's again not called hesach hadas. So Yaakov Fisher says as well. However, Chaim says no, it is called Havlam Nivrach, and maybe we'll suggest, as we already pointed out, maybe this is a practicality. Maybe you're at a meal and someone starts singing Shir Hamalas, and Shir Hamalas moves into another song, which moves into another dessert, which moves into another drink. So maybe the fact that they said Shir Hamalas didn't end the meal, or maybe in other people's houses you start Shir Hamalas and boom, that means that you're done. It is totally in. Was there a hesach hadas or not? So we said you have to make a new bracha on the mashken. Someone who's mesiach taitim Seudah b'tois. For example, he forgot that there's more to eat, and he made a bracha achreina. Listen to this one. Says the Ber Halacha in the name of Rav Akiva Eiger. Got to make a new bracha afterwards. But if you didn't make a bracha achreina, we're gonna have to see b'siyata d'shmaya. And you drank, and you made a bracha of before you made your ala michya, and then you decide that you want to eat more mizayna. He says, Rav Pa'alim, you got to make a new bracha rishayna, because once you made your bracha achrayna on the drinks, that means you mamish finish, and therefore you need a new bracha. It's hesach hadas. Now, comes along Dirshu note number 6. This is really what we are referring to. What happens that you were mesiach taitai, however, you didn't say ba'u v'nivrach. This is going to hopefully bring you out the practicality detail that we're discussing. Says Eliyashiv Bizmanenu, b'derech klal ein lanu gemiras das gemura sheitach shoiv kesach hadas. We never finish eating. It says Rav Eliyashiv, understanding the Welt, we change our mind all the time. We don't just, no more eating, done. Then you decide to eat a little more. Aside from the times, special times, for example, one has to finish his meal because the bus is waiting or something like that, the taxi's waiting, or he made a bracha achrayna. But if not, says Rav Eliyashiv Agoyna Agadol, it's not considered that there was a hesach hadas, and therefore you would not need a new bracha. But now, what if he just doesn't have any das to drink anymore? Says in Kuf Sad, Magen Avraham said you have to make a new bracha achrayna miyad. You should make bracha achrayna miyad because maybe you're gonna pass the shir equal. This is very common. You're sitting down at the desk, at the office, at the sefer. You finish one coffee. Eventually, you can have another one. You don't know how long it's going to be. So Magen Avraham says, what should you do? Make a bracha achrayna because you don't know how long it's going to be. You might pass by your shir equal. And you're going to have to make a new bracha rishayna, and therefore you lost your bracha achrayna. It says the Ber Halacha over there, according to Even HaEzer and Mayim Achronim, if you're not siach taita from drinking or eating, wasn't a spot to your original bracha, even if you waited the whole day, and you will not have to make a new bracha. However, you have to make a bracha achrayna. Why? Because after the share equal, and you're not able to make a bracha achrayna. So it's true. You might not need to make a new bracha rishayna, but you lost your bracha achrayna. If I take a drink at 1 o'clock, by 5 o'clock, that drink's out of my system. So I can't make a bracha achrayna anymore. And therefore, yamsin bracha achrayna on that which you drank already. She'yiv bracha she'yivarich l'b'soif. And oftentimes you don't end up drinking at all. Therefore, says the Magen Avraham, make a bracha achrayna before you lose the ability to make the bracha achroina. Dirshu points out, what about if one eats with shurim? Okay, let's move on. Let's say Dirshu number 7. In the beginning, you only want to eat a small amount of food, and after you decide to eat more. So if you're Meisim Uchacham, that you were mamish not going to eat anymore, then it would be called a nimnach and a new brach. But if not, we remind ourselves the words of Eliashiv that Lamaisa, we don't really, ever have real das. Okay, Dirshu number 10 points out, when we said that you go from achila to achila, this is only if you're still in your place and you're an Iker Mekaimai. Says if you already moved, you left the seat, etc., etc. Afikoimin Lel Seder, we'll see in Tafayin Zayin. So forgot to eat Afikoimin, and he only remembered after he washed his hands, Mayim Achronim, or he said Havlam v'Nivrach. What should you do? Eat Afikoimin, but you do not make the Hamaitzi. The Mishmur over there explains, even though over here we're learning that if you said Havlam v'Nivrach, that's Chadatz, but if you want, however, if you want to eat more, you have to make a new bracha. B'afikoimin, it's not true. It's not telling your das because it's a ratzon Hashem. It's a mitzvah, and therefore you just made a mistake. It's not a real hesach hadas, says Mishmur, and therefore you will not make a new bracha on the afikoimin. And we'll stop over here. We'll pick it up from Sif Beis in the next year. B'siyata Dishmaya.